The following is a Papi Chulo Radio original program. The views and opinions expressed in the commentaries and/or interviews in the following program are solely those of the individuals and are not views of Papi Chulo Radio, its parent, affiliate, or subsidiary companies.
Welcome to the Central City Citizen, a PapiChuloRadio.com original series. Papi Chulo Radio, pop culture on demand. Today is Thursday, March 2nd, 2023, and I'm your host, Professor X. During this podcast, we'll be having an in-depth discussion on the CW's The Flash. Please welcome my co-host, Dimitri Wijasinger.
What's happening, Central City?
And Jeffrey Aruz.
Hello, Central City, and hello to the denizens of Gotham City from Earth, what I'm going to call Vengeance.
Well, let's jump into our discussion of Season 9, Episode 4, which was titled Mask of the Red Death Part 1 and aired on March 1st, 2023. Here's the official synopsis of the episode. The Flash is forced to make an impossible choice. With the power out in the city, Team Flash calls upon the Rogue Squad to help as Iris is visited by an old friend. Joe and Cecile work on finding a balance. The summaries are getting shorter with every episode as we go deeper into the season. I'm sure by the end of the season, it's just going to be Barry, and that'll be it. Anyway, so we start out at the Red Death Slayer where we get an interestingly shot sort of opening montage. It didn't last very long. It was just this series of shots that I thought was like really, fun and creative, but they didn't really go anywhere with it, which was a shame. I thought we were going to get into one of those episodes where you really feel the director's fingerprints on it. But it was really just for that opening montage. Anyway, we see Mark is at work building the cosmic treadmill. The Red Death doesn't fear he's working fast enough. It still needs a power source, but Red Death tells him to leave that to her and then dashes off to recruit another mouse, or villain as she sees it, to their cause. Shout out to the writers for letting her mention Batman's famous line about criminals being a superstitious and cowardly lot. Dimitri, any thoughts on the opening scene beside the fact that Red Death has terrible managerial skills?
I do think, and maybe it's just, biased now that we know that it's Javicia Leslie, but I feel like I am hearing more of a hint of Ryan Wilder, like in her voice or something. It's becoming more believable that this is Ryan Wilder or, a Ryan Wilder. And I did like that, they sort of introduced the whole, there is no Batman in her timeline and it's all her, which is kind of a cutesy CW way of getting around the fact that we don't have rights to Batman, so we're going to make Red Death. So I did like that, in addition to sort of bringing in, this whole like Batman-esque storyline, they are kind of circumventing the Batman issue. And so all of the darkness that comes with, broody Bruce Wayne as we know him kind of feels more fitting, as opposed to, this is a Ryan who grew up exactly like the Ryan we love from Batwoman, and for some reason she's just gone way over the deep end, and that would almost hint that our beloved Ryan is also just one step away from the deep end, which would be a sad lookout for us Batwoman fans everywhere.
Well, you're getting a bit ahead because, we don't realize as viewers in the episode, at this point, we are supposed to think that this is our Ryan Wilder, who's somehow, been transformed. We don't find out about her, her alternate backstory until considerably later. And I think a lot of the lifting in the episode is designed around us, expecting or presuming that this must be our Ryan Wilder because, there's nothing to indicate, once she reveals it, everything becomes clear. But I think we're supposed to think, just like Iris is supposed to think in that moment, that, this must be my old pal Ryan. Although that becomes problematic.
Did you ever think that? I was so sure that this was some sort of alternate Ryan.
No, you know what? Last episode, when we heard that she'd gone missing, I was thinking, oh, that must mean that, the Red Death has, corrupted her in some way. By this episode, no. I mean, and even when we saw her with the Pepe Le Pew streak in her hair, I didn't think that indicated you're from another universe because, of course, if she was from another universe, she'd have a goatee.
Oh, the Pepe
Fair,
Le
fair.
Pew streak. I like
I
that.
guess you get the Pepe Le Pew streak or you get the goatee. You don't get both.
Well, maybe there is a universe out there where you get both.
Well, you know what? In an infinite universe, anything is possible. At the West household, Joe is reading Jenna a bedtime story when Cecile discovers a real estate pamphlet for a house in Keystone City. Joe thinks they should buy the house in order to give Jenna a normal life. Cecile is not on board. Jeff, we've talked over the past couple of weeks, well, I guess since the first episode, about Joe wanting to move away and thinking there was another shoe that had to drop. We didn't have sufficient justification for why Joe would want to leave, especially if it meant leaving, Iris and Barry. Well, the shoe dropped this week. We may as well jump ahead to their discussion. So, Jeff, what did you think about Joe's argument? I found myself for the first time since he broached the idea back in episode 1, I found myself agreeing with him, especially given what happens later in the episode, that I think Joe has a point, not just, for Jenna to have a normal life, but for Jenna to be safer. It makes more sense. And also, I think the shock reveal that no one was expecting was just how cheap houses are in Keystone City. That's crazy.
Right? Because you talk so much, this little shade, it won't make as much sense. But you said let's jump ahead and talk about other stuff. I was gonna say let's jump ahead before Dimitri does. Slight shade for Dimitri, but
My bad.
no, it's fine. Okay, so when this storyline started again in this episode, and he had gotten a pamphlet and all that sort of stuff, I was just like, I don't like this storyline. It just seems so ridiculous. It's like the only way that the writers know how to get rid of characters on The Flash is to make them move. I mean, it happened with Cisco. I mean, he kind of needed to because he was a series regular, so it's not like he could just be, parading around Central City with his girlfriend.
Well, they've also killed everyone who's ever dated Caitlyn. So, I mean, that's another way to get rid of them.
They did do that, yes. And they called Keone Caitlyn in this episode, which confused me. But anyway, maybe we'll get to that at some point. I don't know if both of y'all heard
I
it.
didn't catch that.
Yes, Barry goes, Caitlyn's right.
I wonder if that was an accident on the set or if it was something more intentional.
Exactly. But anyway, back to Papa Joe and Mama Cecile. So when Joe finally breaks down and expresses the whole concept of, I feel like my children did not have, my children did not really have a stable household. And now that they're grown-ups, there isn't stability in Central City. So I'm very scared of that. And I would love my daughter who we finally see on screen after maybe 2.5 seasons.
Before you go on, I just want to ask,
Okay.
do you think it was an in-joke by the writers with Cecile going, you've grown so much? Do you think
I
it was
hope-
like a little,
yeah.
like that was a little wink at the audience? Yeah, we get it too.
I hope so. It was cute. I mean, it was also, let's be real. I feel like parents do that all the time when they haven't seen their kids, like maybe in half a day. Have you grown? So it was kind of like a parent thing to do, but I think it was also a wink and a nod for us because we haven't seen the child in... I know that it was kind of joking around saying 2.5 seasons, but I actually feel like that's the truth. We haven't seen her in like 2.5 seasons. But anyway, like when he expressed himself, because it's Joe, and I trust Joe, and I believe in Joe, and he is kind of like the moral standard of the series, I completely understood what he was saying, and I even felt for him. So once that was fully expressed, everything else from the previous couple of episodes kind of made sense, and I felt like he made a strong argument. I wasn't 100% sold just because, like, I don't want them to move. Like, the whole family is there in Central City, even though it's just a 2-hour drive away. But still, like their whole family is there, and their sort of makeshift family, with their friends and that sort of thing. So I think it's a bad decision. But if this is, the storyline that they're giving them in the final season, I'm actually more okay with it now based off of how Joe expressed himself than I was initially. Clearly things change, and we'll get to that when we get to that.
At Star Labs, Chester's still dealing with things being awkward between himself and Allegra because, of course, he is. What else could we possibly have in this show? But there's no time to deal with that because they're still trying to find Red Death. Red Death shows up in Central City, and Flash responds and tries to hug it out, bro. Well, talk it out anyway. But Red Death has come armed with Roy Bivolo, who uses his powers to incapacitate the Flash, which allows Red Death to engulf the city in darkness and kidnap Flash for his own, or her own, nefarious purposes. Now, it makes sense that there would be an unexpected rogue from the past to take Barry down. But Dimitri, did you think he was taken out too easily? Does it sometimes seem like Barry's been doing this for 9 weeks rather than 9 years?
Yeah, it kind of, honestly, with these shows, with this show's sort of action sequence, it almost feels like, you know what, just roll with it, because it does feel like, Barry's going to go wherever the plot is going to go. Is he the fastest man alive? I almost said the flashiest man alive.
Oh, he probably is too.
But he's slow when it matters for him to get captured. He's, he has infinite time if, he gets caught by surprise, but the season's running out of episodes. But like, if he needs to get captured, sometimes it's just inexplicable, and he kind of gets dusted right away as though he's fighting Darkseid or somebody. So honestly, at this point, I kind of roll with it. But yeah, he did get dusted pretty quickly.
Do we remember Bivolo?
Not at all. I vaguely remember somebody making eye contact with you and that being bad, but I did not remember the name Bivolo. I did not remember his face. I mean, we cycle through so many metas each week. It really feels like of the villains they're choosing to make a reappearance, like the selection is iffy. Choose people who are more recent, or if they were all gonna make a reappearance, have them in a few episodes, each season or something, so that we're reminded of their presence. Like, it just, I don't know, it feels so weird.
Or is this a situation like what I mentioned before? Is this a rogue that they dealt with in the off season, aka in the time between the episodes, where they're clearly living their lives doing stuff, and we just don't get any.
No, I remember Bivolo.
Oh, you remember Bivolo?
Yeah, he was a meta. Just because his name is like Roy G. Biv, which is how you remember the colors of the spectrum.
I think I remember you actually mentioning that in that podcast.
Red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet.
Yeah.
At the lair, Flash is revealed to be Death's power source for the cosmic treadmill, and a lot more is revealed as well. Red Death is a woman. Well, it's revealed to Barry. We knew it last week, and some of us knew it last summer. Thank you, spoilers. Mark steps in to protect Barry's secret identity. At Star, the team realizes they don't have a way to contact or even find Barry. Keon suggests calling on the good rogues, and Chester realizes they can use their low tech to call them in. Jeff, leaving aside Barry's rampant sexism in assuming that Red Death was a man, check your privilege, Barry. Any thoughts on the scene? I thought it kind of played into one of the tropes that I mentioned last week, which was the possibility that Mark was, a hidden, a mole basically within the evil rogues, and we would find out that he was, working with Barry all along. And I thought they sort of threw this scene in there to lead us down that path, to make us think that's what was happening, even though it obviously wasn't.
Yeah, unfortunately it wasn't. That scene in particular, outside of Roy G. Biv, outside of Barry, sort of now understanding that he's dealing with a female big bad, I thought the scene was interesting because we had our friend Ish, Chilblain, lying about there being a booby trap in the cowl. So it was like, okay, so you're kind of still an ally-ish, even though you double-crossed. So this scene has been created to show that even though you are selfishly doing things with the baddie of this graphic novel, you are still somewhat of an honorable person, so that when you eventually get your shit together and decide to be team heroes again, we can sort of see this as the moment in which we can look back at this moment and be like, he had done a shitty thing, but he's trying to at least somewhat be a decent human being while doing questionable things with questionable people. And hello, he is in the opening credits. So
True. And honestly, like that's another, as I was saying last week, the expectation that he would turn back is as much driven by the fact that we know he's a series regular and he's in the opening credits. Now, wouldn't it be great if they started next week and he wasn't in the opening credits and his name didn't appear as a series regular? And wait a second, did they just do a massive fake out for us?
Mm-hmm.
At Barry and Iris's loft, Ryan Wilder mysteriously shows up injured. Ryan tells Iris she was coming into the city when she was hit by an EMP, which caused her injury. She claims she was also hit by the same Red Death in Gotham, and that Red Death, whoever they are, stole her tech. But Iris is skeptical. Personally, I have to give a chef's kiss for Ryan's strategy of approaching Iris as herself. To me, it all sounded very plausible, and I thought it was a little surprising that Iris was so suspicious. We found out some of her justification later on. But as for me, I was thinking to myself, well, this sounds entirely plausible. I don't see why Iris would disagree with it. Dimitri, what did you think? And did you think Iris's skepticism was justified or just necessary to the story because you'd already sussed out that this was an alternate version of Ryan?
Honestly, thought this was an alternate version. As in, I thought that this Ryan who was coming to Iris and the Ryan that had kidnapped Barry were two different Ryans.
You know what? That would make sense too, right? What if the real Ryan had shown up in Central City just as, the Red Death was monologuing in front of Barry?
Yeah, when she showed up, especially when she had that like scar on her arm, I was like, oh, this Ryan, took our Ryan prisoner and our Ryan has just been able to break free or something.
And you thought she also had the Pepe Le Pew?
That was the only reason I didn't believe it, because I agree with Dimitri. I thought it sounded entirely reasonable. It would, allow them to bring our Ryan in, but she did have the Pepe Le Pew streak in her hair. That was the only reason I didn't think it was possible.
Right? She was immediately sus with the Pepe Le Pew. Wait, can we quickly, because we saw it from different angles and in different lighting. How do we feel about the wig this week?
I honestly thought it was better. Last time we saw her, it looked very much like a wig and like an unnecessarily bulky wig. I don't know if they changed the wig or they just, were working with her, ordinary Batwoman hair and just dyed it. But this week it looked like a dye job, whereas last week I felt it looked almost like a helmet, like it was such a badly done wig.
Okay, I will co-sign that. It looked like a dye job this week. It looked like it was actually a part of her head.
Yeah.
I think part of the difference is that last week we only saw her, having just taken the helmet off. And so like the hair would have been stuffed down into that helmet space, which might have caused it to poof up more and make it look a little less real. I thought it looked very real in her scenes with Iris. And I don't know whether it was probably a wig, but maybe they got Javicia to put some temporary dye in for a few days. I don't know, but I agree it did look quite realistic. Meanwhile, Red Death continues to taunt Barry and let him know that she isn't the avatar of the negative Speed Force. She reveals there's actually no one inside the armor. She's remotely controlling it, and she built her own speed. She needs Barry to power the treadmill because her speed is artificial, and she's going to run Barry to death. Now, just a little more management advice for Red Death. Don't tell people you're going to kill them until after they do what you want. So, Jeff, I'm going to ask you a question now, and then I'm not going to tell you what's going to happen to you afterwards. I like the helmet reveal. It's a little cheesy when you think about it, because of the way they're intercutting it. That did lead to that assumption that, oh, this could be our version of Ryan, and maybe she's just gotten a white streak in her hair since we last saw her. But it's not until after that reveal of the empty suit and the helmet, in the next scene where we hear Ryan is listening in, we realize that she's controlling it remotely. So I thought that was a great reveal. I've talked to Dimitri about this. Jeff, what did you think about how they sort of soft played? They allowed us to believe, well, maybe this is our Ryan. Maybe there are two different Ryans out there. How did you think it worked?
I do agree with you. It was a good reveal. I thought when I guess the suits, off with her head, it was incredibly fascinating because we had never really seen something like that before on The Flash, so I thought it was a really good creative choice. From the beginning, I knew that was going to be her, though, that was visiting Iris, just because, the streak. Had she covered it up or something,
Wearing a hat?
A hat?
A fashionable kerchief?
Something.
The Batwoman cowl?
Yes, something, because, we as viewers know that she has a gray streak, so our Ryan Wilder does not have a gray streak. Even with the complexities and the stresses of the job, I don't think that would have happened in the short amount of time since we've last seen her. But, okay, so this is what I thought was going down. I thought what we were seeing was, even though it was being spliced together from the editors as if it was all happening at the same time. I thought what we were seeing with Iris was, either after the conversation that Red Death was having with Barry, or, well, it would have been after because she did the whole Hulk clap to turn the power off while she was with, wait, did she? Now I'm trying to remember. When the hell did she do the super clap? Was it the suit that did the super clap?
Just after Bivolo brought Barry down.
Okay, so wait, so are we supposed to believe that it was her, right? We knew that it was her, Ryan. It wasn't just the suit that did the super clap, right?
I'm assuming she was in the suit when she did the super clap, and then it was just that, allowing the suit to run on its own when she was talking to.
I love how we're calling it the super clap, but anyway, it was like the whole clap. You know what I'm saying?
And you know what? When you get super clap, you get super penicillin.
Exactly. Oh, yes, that is very true. Make a note of that, Dimitri, as just in case. But anyway.
Why me?
I don't know, because you're here.
What are you trying to say, man?
I don't know, you're here. But anyway, so okay. So anyway, so I thought what they were doing was like an editing trick, and then after the conversation with Barry, she would have been and here's Iris, but no. So this Ryan Wilder is just a super genius. I give her props. Tony Stark, you need to bow down, because what she was doing was incredibly impressive. And I was just okay, this is something brand new that we have never seen before, and I'm really digging it.
Iris figures out that this Ryan is not right somehow and confronts her. Ryan pleads her case, explaining she's from another timeline where the Flash is the villain. She explains there was no Batman in her world. The Waynes adopted her as a child, then they were murdered. She became Gotham's protector. She studied all of her enemies' technology and made her own copies before studying her allies and making her own, technology based on her allies' powers as well, including an artificial speed force. She says she eliminated crime before it happened, which should be a big, a big danger point right there.
Minority Report. Hello.
But she says her Flash turned against her to help stop her, and she's tried to hide in the Speed Force, but it rejected her. She's now just trying to get home so she can stop Flash and his rogues, and she needs Iris's help. Dimitri, Jeff had his chance to weigh in on this. You, like me, thought, that could be our Ryan. We find out here it definitely isn't. I thought her story was plausible, and I thought Javicia Leslie played it very straight. Compared to how she acts later in the episode, this is very much, trust me, I'm Ryan Wilder. Did you buy it at all?
I thought for a second, oh, I've got it. This is the Ryan from the alternate timeline that Reverse Flash made.
Yes,
where
I thought
he
that
made
too.
the Flash into the villain. And so this Ryan, one, we saw her being best friends with Iris in that timeline. And she was like, oh, the Flash needs to be stopped. She, somehow transported to this timeline and is now hell-bent on, taking down the Flash. For a second, I was like, oh, it all comes full circle. I've got it figured out. But, instead it's just an alternate timeline and she's totally lying, which Iris finds out in a second. To some degree, some part of me would have preferred the version I thought it was, but this works too. I did find it interesting that the Ryan who has the origin story closer to Bruce Wayne is the one who is more prone to go quote unquote evil. So yeah, I thought it was definitely interesting. I did not see it coming at all when she said in my timeline the Flash is a villain. I 100% believed her, and I thought, for whatever reason she needs to take down the Flash. But apparently in all timelines the Flash is good. Iris is his lightning rod. It's only Batwoman who can turn evil.
At the lair, Mark tries to offer Barry some water, and Barry tells him he doesn't have to help Red Death, but Mark says it's too late for him. Barry insists he's part of Team Flash, even after what he's done, and people make mistakes. As we've said before, how is he considered part of Team Flash? He's just a guy who hung around with Frost. Clearly, they're setting up Mark's face turn at the end. At this point, I thought it was a little clumsy. They did get away, by him offering the water and basically saying, we can talk, and then Barry just shouting at him from 2 feet away. Pretty much indicated, okay, I don't think Mark is a sleeper agent after all. But Jeff, I did think, they were just sort of hitting us over the head with the idea of no, clearly Mark's on the other side. I think this is where they really tipped their hand that he's going to, do the face turn at the end. What did you think? I think that if they hadn't played it up so much, then his turn at the end might have been a little more surprising. But after this scene, it was just so dramatically obvious that's what they were going to do.
Yeah, well, Barry needed to have a little talk no jutsu moment, and that's basically what he did. I will say the little line of shade that Red Death, or I think it was Robo Red Death, did to Barry, where she was like, oh, you see the best in the criminals, but you see the worst in your allies. And I was like, even though, like, now we know she's from a different timeline, I'm like, there's a little ring of truth into that.
We have occasionally commented that the biggest villain traditionally in the Flash TV show has been Barry. So,
yeah. Although he's gotten better. He's gotten better, I will say that.
Back at the West Allen home, Iris isn't buying Ryan's story, and Ryan reveals she accidentally killed her Iris while fighting the Flash, her version of the Flash. This is getting confusing. Iris gets Ryan angry enough to reveal she wants to kill Barry. On the other hand, Ryan seems to have been hoping that somehow she and Iris could still be besties afterwards. Jeff, how did you like how the scene
Yes.
played out and how Javicia played her heel turn? At first, I thought Iris was disarmed too easily, but then I remembered, oh yeah, this is Ryan Wilder and an even better version of Ryan Wilder than we're used to. So I accepted it.
Yeah, this Ryan Wilder is OP. There was a part of me that was hoping that Iris was going to be OP because they kept on talking about like the creamer and the this, that, or the other. And I was like, oh, are you like poisoning her? Did you like drop in like a sedative or something? Like I was hoping Iris did something. Then she pulled out a gun, which is I feel like that's the Iris West Allen trademark at this point. And I was like, okay. I mean, I don't know what that gun was going to do because like she's like a speedster, or even though it's artificial. So there's that whole thing. But I was like, all right, Iris, you're being a badass, which I approve of. I'm going to say this. I don't know if there were questionable comments on social media about this. Like maybe Dimitri can fill us in. Because I like the whole I Am Vengeance from last week, but apparently in social media some people had a bit of an issue with that. I kind of liked seeing Javicia Leslie play a rainbow cavalcade of emotions in this episode. Like, I loved seeing her be incredibly subdued and kind of calculating as, like, a interpretation of the Ryan Wilder that we knew, because like when she started talking to Iris and she was being all sweet and kind and like, we're friends, right? And I know your house, like all of that was like really I was like believing her. Like I was like, okay, this feels like Javicia's trying to tap into the Ryan Wilder that we know and love. But then when she started talking about like, you want to get crazy, I was like, okay, like Javicia Leslie plays batshit crazy very well and convincingly. I think the clinical term of what she was portraying is cray-cray. And the cray-cray was good for me. Like I was digging it. Like she went from 0 to like a billion over the span of like 30 seconds. And I enjoyed that. And we see a little bit more of the cray-cray later on, and that was spectacular as well. It was like she was embracing kind of like the over-the-top insanity and camp of like comic book villains. And so I enjoyed the gamut of emotions that Javicia Leslie brought. I also want to say I'm glad that I was 1,000% wrong in what I thought or where I thought this storyline was going the previous time that we gathered together to discuss a Flash episode. I'm so glad that I was like super wrong. Nothing that what I said was true. I'm glad the Reverse Flash, it appears, it was not involved in any of this. So yeah, all of the exposition-y tidbits that we got was really fascinating. And we got to give props. We love Iris West Allen here. And the fact that she was able to, through just conversation, go to the root of what this Ryan Wilder was doing and to completely see through all of the shenanigans was chef's kiss.
Evil Ryan uses Iris as bait to force Barry to run on the cosmic treadmill, which he does. He gets on the treadmill and starts causing lightning to strike all through the city, including at the West House, where Cecile is able to use her powers, fortunately, to save Jenna, and then takes off to help save the neighbors. Dimitri, I didn't get a chance to ask you about this, but despite the Jenna almost dying, the episode ends with Joe agreeing to stay in the city with Cecile and raise their daughter in this extremely dangerous environment. Were you surprised by that turn at the end, given what happened here? This, to me, felt like the moment when Joe could simply go, yes, see, but they did a little twist on us.
So 2 things bugged me about this scene. One is that in earlier seasons, whenever Joe's talked about his kids, he's made it a point to mention Barry as one of his kids. And in this episode, he was like, oh, there was Iris, and then there was Wally, and now there's Jenna, and that's it. That's all my kids, which is like, oh. But then also, it does seem like, look, we have to, which I think we discussed last week as well, we have to get out of here so that, you and our daughter can be safe. And he's like, I mean, my other daughter and, my adopted son can die. But, this daughter, we have to keep alive. It seems very not Joe.
She is a child. Are you really going saying that you are disgusted by Joe wanting to keep his little girl alive?
Well, it does seem like, Joe has, different standards of concern for his family, which isn't the Papa Joe we know. I mean, he was very upset when when he thought, Barry was destined to die. It just seemed like, oh, we need a little bit of conflict here. And also, we sort of want, like her powers to sort of save the day and her to sort of come into a hero in her own right. But Joe has been through all this stuff with Barry already. So
you're expressing that you have concerns that Papa Joe is worried for his single-digit daughter, for her safety.
Not his other children.
One who is protected by someone who has mastered the Speed Force and the other one who is involved with the Speed Force as well.
I mean, yes, but he also has a superpowered wife who can take care of this daughter.
Well, that
By
is
that
true.
logic.
I can see that point, but you're understand how you're disgusted by Papa
I mean,
Joe
if Jeff
wanting to
ever has
protect the
kids,
child.
let's all keep an eye on them after they turn 18, because apparently Jeff is okay with them dying as soon as they are of age. The rest of us,
I love how I'm twisting your words and now you're twisting them back. Touche.
Jeff lives in Florida. His kids will be alligator bait long before they make 18.
That is true.
Fair enough.
At Star Labs, now that the meta cuffs are off, Barry the Rogues have a location and Allegra has a teleporter. So while they're in process of coming, Mark sabotages the treadmill, temporarily taking down Ryan and destroying the device. Barry can't run because his speed's been drained, so Mark goes to hold off the evil Rogues. One last selfless act from this longtime member of Team Flash. The Rogue Squad shows up to rescue Barry, but they leave Mark behind, seemingly dead. Dimitri, is Mark dead? Standard comic book logic would say no, if only because he's still in the show opening. But with Ryan being back from another world, could that mean that we're going to get the same actor playing a different version of Mark to finish out the season? And I ask this because does this version of Mark have to die after all the bad stuff he's been doing and his creepy fixation on his dead girlfriend?
I mean, I really thought it was the very tired trope of somebody does bad things, then they, turn back to a redemption arc. But it would be really clunky if they, had to then be, reintegrated into society, or, they would have to, be arrested or whatever. It would just be not as Hollywood an ending if they just survive that arc. So they die at the end. The Darth Vader phenomenon. But this is the show where a human trafficker and
Meta-human trafficker
attempted murderer just kind of got to chill for a while. So I thought if any show is not going to engage in that trope, it would be this show, and Mark can come back and Barry will just be like, bruh, just don't do that again. But he actually died. I wasn't.
No, we don't know he's dead.
I mean, I thought it was pretty. If he's not dead,
he's not dead.
He like Barry just looks like such an asshole.
He did not. It was not his choice.
Well, the team, I guess, the team as a whole look like such assholes.
Well, yes, they are because they're criminals.
Back for him. Instead, they're all just like, he's dead.
He's not dead. My whole worry about this storyline is, I mean, clearly he's not dead. He will be back. I just hope that it's not like, I did a good thing and you left me behind, and so now I'm very pissed at y'all and I'm 100% team bad guy. Like, I don't want to see that. Like, if that's the storyline,
that would be too many tropes,
right?
For even this show.
If that's if that's where they're going, I hope he stays dead.
I would much rather have a Mark port in from another universe. Simply to avoid, that the temptation to go down that road, because you could even argue that the way it was cut, he said, you guys go, and then they showed up. And so he was busy fighting the other rogue. So he didn't see Barry trying to save him. So that would lead to his resentment, because everything in the Arrowverse is based on people not communicating effectively. My only problem with Mark somehow surviving to next week is that would mean that he survived, a 1 versus 4 against, 4 rogues, and he didn't have any powers. Plus the Red Death was recovering and, somehow let him live. The only way I will accept it is if we cut to him, basically strapped to a slab covered in scars and someone doing horrible, things to him as a form of torture. Otherwise, it would make no sense for him to still be alive.
I will say he was handling himself pretty well. As much like shit talking that y'all do about him, I don't mind him, but he isn't a favorite or anything. But he was handling himself pretty well with them. Like, he grabbed, I think it was like a pipe, and he's like bashed the fiddle out of the fiddler. Like, he was, I give him his props. If he does end up dying, then he went out fighting. So props to him.
Yeah, he had, as I say, all you can hope for in these shows is a good ending, that your character, dies a hero. The team realizes Ryan's now stuck in their timeline, so that's not good. Allegra goes to talk to Chester because, wow, what a terrible sense of timing you have, Allegra. Let's make this all about you. Mark's death has made her ready to deal with the situation between them. It's funny, isn't it, how Mark's death seems to be bothering people a lot more than Caitlin's death ever did? Because, no one seemed to say boo about Caitlin dying, but Mark's died and suddenly everyone's rethinking their place in life. Jeff, Chester's now the one who isn't ready because he just doesn't feel like this is the time. And after all, we still have 8 episodes, so better drag this out some more. But, oh my God, we were talking about tropes a minute ago. The trope of the one person who wants to talk, but, the other person can't. And then the other person wants to talk, and, oh, no, now I can't. And, oh, now let's just have more meaningful looks at each other. It's Smallville all over again, and not in the good way. So, Jeff, what did you think about our resolution, such as it is on the Chester Allegra thing? And I use resolution in scare quotes because it's obviously not.
All right. I feel like, whenever we write something, like let's say if you're in high school or at university and you write like a term paper and you've poured your heart and soul into it and you feel like you've written the best damn term paper of your life, and then the instructor, the professor ends up handing back your work and it's an F. That's what I would say about this, because I'm sure they think that this is like the love story to end all love stories. These people are not Jack and Rose, and this is not the Titanic. Although this ship is going down in the Northern Atlantic, what the hell is this storyline? Like, okay, Allegra, we should talk. I can't talk to you right now. My girl Frost is dead, and this is just not an appropriate time. All right, Chuck, I'm ready to talk. I can't talk to you right now. My boy Chill Blaine has died, and I just can't talk about us. But we know where we stand, and when it's a good time, we will connect. Y'all are fucking 30 years old. Who the hell do you think you are? 16-year-olds in high school? The kids in Riverdale move faster than you two. What the hell is going on? Like, I don't understand this storyline. I guess the writers think that this is like somehow gonna make me root for them. Listen, they have chemistry. They are cute together, but I'm just not invested in them anymore. And I feel like I was the only one out of all of us that was ever even slightly invested in the little chemistry that they had. And they do have it, but I don't know what this is. And it's incredibly stupid, for lack of a better word.
And it's kind of crazy that, because the writers are clearly just dragging this out and stringing it out. It's not like it's a significant plot point. It's not like, this is the resolution of all resolutions, or that this is something that people have been pining for 9 years. This is not a Keiko situation. This is, clearly just, we got to drag it out some more. Because if they, let's say they did, after the kiss, they talked about it like mature adults, and they said, hey, let's date, or hey, let's not date, and just got it out of the way. Would that have changed anything that happens in the show?
No.
This is just a way of ginning up another, 10 minutes of content every episode that doesn't go anywhere.
And they could have done content dating shenanigans. They're out, at the local haunt, and they, some sort of like metahuman, wants to like, I don't know, steal the money from the cash register. I don't know what the hell. I'm just making shit up right now. But like, they could have done something like that, and then they team up and they take down the baddie, and like the Flash team like has no idea that they got into, whatever. Like, that could have been much more interesting than dragging out a romance that clearly is going to happen, and it has been 5 years in the making. Like, it just doesn't make any sense.
Finally, at Red Death's lair, Red Death has a full meltdown and decides that since she can't get back to her own world, she's just going to have to take over this one. So kudos to you for adapting to circumstances, Red Death. And shout out to Javicia Leslie for going full supervillain and just chewing the scenery in that final scene. I don't care if people thought it was a bit over the top. She's nailing what a supervillain should be on The Flash. And I think, we enjoyed it that much more this episode because we got to see her doing it, without the mask. Every other time we've seen, soliloquizing from Red Death, it's been, with the mask on. Here we're able to see Javicia Leslie just giving it the full facial expressions, and some of her facial expressions throughout the episode were delightful. Guys, we know next week is the Mask of the Red Death Part 2, and presumably that's going to be the end of the Red Death arc. So what are you expecting? How are we going to resolve this? And, what's going to be set up for the next arc? I'll start with you, Jeff.
Oh, gosh. Echoing everything you said about her, though, about Javicia Leslie, she was fantastic, even though it was ridiculously over the top, but it was ridiculously over the top in a spectacular kind of way. Oh, God, I don't know how this ends. In my heart of hearts, I feel like we need to find out where our Ryan Wilder is, so clearly they're going to have to deal with the Red Death. My hope is that after they deal with the Red Death, we actually see our Ryan Wilder safe and sound. In the back of my mind, I feel like the Red Death kidnapped her. I don't know why she would do that, though. But, she's crazy anyway, so, why not? As far as how they're going to get rid of her, I feel like the only appropriate thing would be to send her back to her timeline, but I don't know how that's going to happen. But yeah, I feel like the most appropriate outcome would be that Barry creates a wormhole, throws her in, and, we don't need to see her pay for her sins, but, we know that she is back where she should be, and that Flash is clearly getting payback or something. As far as how we get there though, I really have no idea. All I know is that I really want to see Javicia Leslie as this Ryan Wilder go absolute cray in Central City.
They could just have Ira shoot her in the face. That's always worked in previous seasons.
That is true. They're
Dimitri,
saving that for the finale.
What are you expecting for next week?
I am kind of expecting this Ryan Wilder to die. I don't think you can send her back to her timeline because she's just going to go serial killer then. And, Barry, that's not a very Flash thing to do. What I'm anticipating happening is they're going to have her cornered. She's going to shoot a lightning bolt or something similar. And, by the derpiest of all derps, she's going to hit herself with the lightning bolt and die.
Oh, that's good. Oh, that means that she's going to be extra derpy.
Yeah, I don't imagine this Ryan Wilder surviving through this season, particularly as it's kind of the end of the Arrowverse with the end of this season. I could see her maybe being a recurring baddie if there were more Arrowverse shows going on and maybe she comes back in a crossover or something. But given that, this is kind of the end of the Arrowverse, I am expecting her to die.
Oh.
I honestly don't know. I could see it going either way. My thinking is I think it's more likely that Jeff is right in that, Barry will just open up a portal, shove her through, and, she's her world's problem now after obviously, deactivating her suit and leaving her theoretically powerless. But, she'd still be, Ryan Wilder with all that knowledge. I think she'd still be quite dangerous. My reason for kind of hoping it's more Jeff's approach than Dimitri's is that if that did happen, then we might get a scene on the other side, and it would be a great opportunity to throw in a little fan service, tip of the hat, or, a character that we haven't seen for some time in a different role or something along those lines. So I think that would be a possibility. But the more I think about it, the more I think that Dimitri's right. It does sort of feel like she has to die by her own hand and maybe have a moment of, trying to resolve things with our version of Iris and get some semblance of forgiveness before she expires. Well, what a downer note. Before we move on to the MVP section, was there anything else anyone wanted to mention? An Easter egg, a great moment, or a moment of cringe? In addition to the superstitious Cowardly Lot reference that I mentioned earlier, we did get the second classic quote with her saying, "I am vengeance, I am the night," and then "I am the Red Death." I mentioned last week, I thought the writers might be going that way. You can call it fan service if you like, but I'm a fan and I enjoyed it. And, honestly, that felt to me, as I said last week, like a little tip of the hat to Batman the Animated Series and the classic Batman of our times.
I will say, well, number one, just a quick, just reiteration that Barry called Keown Caitlin, which I was like, was that an editing mistake? That was interesting. Also, Keown kept on talking about how the energies of the world and balance and all this kind of stuff, which sort of adds to our collective theory that she will be some sort of Mother Nature type of superhero. And the other thing is, with this woman, Ryan Wilder from a different timeline, I feel like our team needs to fully now realize that the multiverse is real. Like, remember, they had thought that the multiverse ended with Crisis, and now with this character, I feel like we need to have some sort of exposition-y conversation after the next episode where they all are like, oh, so wait, I thought we wiped out the multiverse. The multiverse must still exist. It must have been reborn. And there are still all these other Earths out there. Like, I just need acknowledgement from them about that.
It's time for the MVP section. State which character impressed you throughout the episode and why. Once a character has been chosen, they cannot be selected again, so choose wisely. I am going to depart from tradition here. I'm going to go first, and you know what I'm going to do. I'm going to take me some Javicia Leslie. I love seeing Ryan Wilder again, and I really love the way Javicia played it throughout. As we said, in the scenes where she was talking with Iris, she was playing it very straight, very believable. As soon as she realized Iris doubted her, you could just see the look in her eyes of, oh, I gave myself away. I wonder what I did wrong. I just thought she was great. I'm really looking forward to seeing what they do with her next episode as well. But she was tremendous. Not only, the fan service of bringing her back. I wasn't sure about that when I heard about it. But Javicia is she seemed to be having more, as much fun as she seemed to have on Batwoman. I thought she was having more fun coming in for two arcs or two episodes, playing the baddie. Jeff, who is your MVP?
That's a fantastic choice. I believe she was probably number one on all of our lists. So yes.
I couldn't leave this one to chance.
Oh yes, I'm sure you would not have gotten her. So yes, I will give you a hat tip for going first. I am going to go with Iris West Allen as my MVP. Sorry, Dimitri, but I have to go with that scene where she figures everything out. Like, oh gosh, it was just brilliantly played by Candice Patton. Just spectacular. Like, we know that our Iris does not know our Ryan Wilder. So the chemistry was very interesting. Like, we saw a glimpse of what it would be like to have both Candice Patton and Javicia Leslie in that alternate universe, timeline, whatever the hell, couple of episodes last season. And so, like, actually seeing them together in the beginning, not really knowing, or them sort of like trying to make it seem a certain kind of way, but then we found out the truth and this, that, or the other. Just them together was really nice, and Candice Patton did a really good job of playing off of her. And then, just the icing on the cake was her figuring everything out, whipping out that gun, and ready to do the Iris West Allen way of life. It was just fantastic. I got to give her the MVP.
Dimitri, who is your MVP and why?
Before I give my MVP, I feel like honorable mention has to go to the face Javicia Leslie made when Barry said, I'm not going to let her hurt you, Iris. She makes this like mocking pout.
Oh, her facial expressions were so good all through the episode. Oh my God, she was just tremendous.
Yeah, no, that pout, like, I saw it circulating as a GIF on Twitter, and I was just like, yeah, no, that was hilarious. It's almost like she's saying, oh, fuck you. Like, it was so perfect. You cannot replicate it on an audio-only podcast, but I feel like that pout was worth a mention. My MVP, since you guys took both of mine, it hurts me to say this, but I do think Chilblain was played well. this
We forced
episode.
you to do it.
I mean, to be fair, he's had a weird plot. It's not, he's been, at least for me, I found him a very hard character to like. But I do think the actor played the conflict in his, face and his mannerisms throughout this episode very, very well. And even though it went down a very traditional trope, I think, it wasn't overdone. It was, a little bit subtle. You could sort of see him wavering. It brought the, very cliche, kind of predictable trope to a more satisfying conclusion, I think, because it was played so well. So, much respect. I don't actually know the actor's name who plays Joe Blaine, but much respect. I think you did good.
One thought that just occurred to me with all the love that we've all given to Javicia Leslie's portrayal of the baddie, we're forgetting she spent 2 years doing a masterclass acting opposite Rachel Skarsten as sort of the ultimate comic book baddie. Would it be surprising to find out that when Javicia got the gig, she just called up Rachel and said, they want me to play a baddie. How should I do that? Girl, sit down. Let me tell you, because she was definitely, just delightfully over the top. I thought just the right tone and something that, we don't always get, when the Flash gets a little too dour. It's more fun when the villains are having fun as well. Okay, it's time to rate the episode. How would you rate the episode on a scale of 1 to 10 lightning bolts? The point system is allowed, and if you found the episode exceptional, deserving of more than a 10, you may archive the episode in the Flash Museum. I learned my lesson after being slapped down for my enthusiasm last week, so I'll go last. Dimitri, how would you rate this episode?
I would give this episode an 8.5. It was enjoyable. There were a few parts where I couldn't see exactly where it was going. Javicia Leslie was a fun to watch, a joy to watch. Definitely some parts were like, okay, I see where this is headed. But, they managed the tension decently well. And, so last episode was definitely a bit of a struggle, but I think this was definitely a step up for the season.
Jeff, how would you rate the episode?
I'm coming in a little higher. I'm going to give it a 9.5. I was thoroughly entertained from beginning to end. Javicia Leslie was spectacular in this episode, but I would say our main cast was actually really good, and also loved how they used the Flash's rogues in this episode as well. And we did have a really good cliffhanger ending. So yeah, I thought this part 1 was very successful. So 9.5 from me.
I'm a little torn here. Usually I would split the difference between the two of you and go with a 9 because there was so much to love with the Javicia stuff and so much to hate with the Chester and Allegra stuff. But overall, I do think that the good outweighed the bad. That, I'm not going to remember, a week from now, a month from now, a year from now, I'm not going to remember the interminable Chester and Allegra of it all. I will remember Javicia Leslie's performance in this. So I'm going to give it a 9.5 as well. I think it's definitely rewatchable, if only for Javicia. And, it's always tricky to try to give a grade to the first half of a two-parter. We kind of have to see if they can stick the landing. But they have set things up in an interesting way. So join us next time for a brand new installment of The Central City Citizen. Here's our announcer to remind you on how you can interact with us.
Follow Papi Chulo Radio on social media. We are on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, at Papi Chulo Radio. Do you have any questions, suggestions, comments, or concerns? Email us via contact@papichuloradio.com. Are you interested in joining the Papi Chulo Radio team as an on-air personality? Email talent@papichuloradio.com. Binge listen to your favorite Papi Chulo Radio programs by visiting papichuloradio.com/archives. You can also download tonight's broadcast and the rest of the series through Apple Podcasts and Google Play. Just search for The Central City Citizen and subscribe.
Thanks, announcer. My co-host, please wish the listeners a good night, starting with Jeff.
Good night, listeners. Stay safe out there. The Red Death is haunting your city.
And Dimitri.
Good night, Central City.
Thanks for tuning in. Subscribe to The Central City Citizen via Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, and iHeartRadio. New episodes released every Friday. You can also download the entire series by visiting poppychuloradio.com/archives. Good night. And thank you to my dog for not barking this time.